I used to believe that silence meant safety, that when a house was quiet, it meant peace lived there. But now I know silence can be a lie, a thick fog that hides the screams of a dying marriage. My house had been quiet for months. Too quiet. Victor used to fill this space with noise, his voice booming when he came home from work, his music playing while he cooked on weekends, his laughter when he told me about some ridiculous office story. That laughter is what made me fall in love with him 8 years ago. He could make the worst day bearable with one joke, one smile. But for months, there had been no laughter. No weekend cooking. No late-night talks. Just a ghost of a husband, coming home late, distracted, glued to his phone, smelling like a cologne I didn't recognize. The night I found out the truth, it was raining, a heavy, punishing rain that slapped against the windows like it wanted to wake me up. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed, scrolling through his laptop. I had never done it before, never snooped, never doubted. But that night, I felt something pulling me toward it. Call it instinct, call it intuition, call it a woman's sixth sense. The emails were easy to find. He was careless, or maybe overconfident. There they were, in a folder labeled innocently enough, work travel. The first few were harmless. Hotel confirmations. Flight bookings. But then there were the others, the ones that began with "I miss you" and ended with things I never thought I'd read in my own husband's words. Her name was Elise. I stared at her name for a long time, like it might disappear if I blinked enough times. Elise. Short, delicate, pretty, probably younger. Probably everything I wasn't anymore. I clicked through their messages one by one, and with every line I read, I felt my body go colder. It wasn't just sex. They were sharing secrets, jokes, dreams. He had given her the things he used to give me. By the time I closed the laptop, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there, listening to the storm outside, letting the truth sink in. My marriage was over. But I didn't tell him. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the day after that. I smiled when he came home. I asked him how work was. I let him kiss my cheek. Because somewhere in the middle of that storm, the one raging outside and the one ripping me apart inside, a thought came to me. Revenge. Not the kind you see in movies, with screaming and throwing things and packing bags. No. I wanted something slower. Something quieter. Something that would hurt the way I hurt, not for a moment, but forever. I started planning the next morning. First, I learned everything about Elise. It wasn't hard. Her Instagram was public, bright, sunny photos of her life, her friends, her perfect smile. She worked at a small marketing agency downtown. She loved wine tastings, yoga, and hiking. She had a cat named Milo. I made a folder on my own laptop labeled groceries. Inside it, I saved every screenshot, every piece of information I found about her. I became obsessed. Victor didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. He was too busy texting her under the table, too busy working late, too busy living his double life. The longer I stayed quiet, the more powerful I felt. My silence became my weapon. Every time he lied to my face, I smiled back. Every time he told me he loved me, I said it too. But in my head, I was sharpening the blade. Weeks passed. Then months. And then I got my chance. It was a Thursday when Victor told me he'd be out of town for the weekend. A conference, he said. I kissed him goodbye, told him to have a safe trip. And then, as soon as he left, I followed him. I had planned it for weeks, booked my own ticket, arranged my own hotel room in the same city. I stayed far enough away that he wouldn't see me, but close enough to watch him. And I watched. I saw him meet her at the airport. I saw him hold her hand like she was his whole world. I saw them check into a hotel together, laughing like two lovers in a romantic comedy. I saw everything I needed to see. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because that night, alone in my own hotel room, something inside me finally snapped, but not in the way you'd think. I didn't want to just end it anymore. I wanted to end them. And as the city lights glowed outside my window, I began to build the perfect plan. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the hotel armchair, staring at the city skyline until the sun came up, my mind buzzing. There was a clarity in me I hadn't felt in months. A dangerous, electric kind of clarity. Revenge was no longer just a word. It was a mission. I checked out of the hotel before noon, flew back home before Victor and Elise even had their first room service breakfast. When he came back 2 days later, smiling, tired, carrying a suitcase that reeked of her perfume, I hugged him. I kissed him. I asked him if the conference went well. He lied, of course. Beautifully, easily. He had become good at it. But now, I wasn't just watching him. I was building a trap around him, one careful piece at a time. The first step was simple. I became the perfect wife again. I cooked his favorite meals. I bought new clothes. I pretended to care about his work. I made him believe he still had me, completely, obediently. And the more comfortable he became, the more careless he grew. While he slept, I unlocked his phone with the fingerprint trick I'd learned. I downloaded everything, messages, pictures, even videos. I kept them all neatly sorted into folders on an encrypted drive. Elise's voice notes were the most interesting. God, I hate that she doesn't know, she giggled in one of them. I'd almost feel bad if she wasn't so. I don't know, boring. You deserve better than her, Vic. Boring. That word stuck in my head like a thorn. It was almost funny, because if there was one thing I knew how to do, it was stop being boring. I started with Elise. One evening, after Victor left for the gym, I drove to her apartment building and waited. I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses. Not that she would have recognized me anyway. I watched her come home from work, carrying groceries, smiling to herself as she scrolled on her phone. When she was inside, I walked around the building, finding the back entrance that led to the parking lot. Her car was there, a white hatchback, spotless, with a little cat-shaped air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. I waited until the parking lot was empty. Then I knelt by her car, slid on gloves, and let the air out of her tires. Not all the way, just enough to make them dangerous to drive on. Then I left. I wasn't trying to hurt her. Not yet. I just wanted to watch her squirm. The next morning, she posted an Instagram story. Great. Flat tires. Late for work. Love this for me. Upside down face. I smiled. It was working. My next move was bolder. One night, I sent Victor an anonymous email. From a burner account. No name, no trace. She's not who you think she is. I attached a fake screenshot I had made, Elise texting another man, flirting with him, arranging to meet. I had spent hours faking it, matching her texting style perfectly from the messages I'd stolen. Victor confronted her, of course. I wasn't there for the fight, but I could feel the tension when he came home that night, silent and furious. He barely touched his dinner. I lay next to him in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. I knew he was replaying everything in his mind, wondering if he was being played. Good. Let him feel it. Weeks passed, and I kept tightening the noose. I sent flowers to Elise's office with a fake note. You can't hide forever. I leaked screenshots of their affair, anonymously, to her boss, knowing it would cause whispers, drama, distraction. I was careful never to touch Victor directly. I let him think the world was conspiring against him. And the more paranoid he became, the more he pulled away from Elise. I watched their relationship rot in real time. The late-night texts grew shorter. The weekends away stopped. He started coming home earlier, restless, angry. But here's the thing about men like Victor, they never admit they're wrong. Not to themselves, not to anyone. He didn't leave her. He just let the relationship bleed out until it was nothing. And when it finally ended, I knew, because I saw her post a picture of herself drinking wine with her friends, captioned, "Single again. Cheers to starting fresh." I should have been satisfied. I should have felt the rush of victory. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about Elise anymore. It was about him. The night I finally confronted him, the house was quiet again, the kind of quiet I had once mistaken for peace. I made him dinner, lit candles, poured wine. He thought it was a celebration. Halfway through the meal, I slid my phone across the table. "Play the video," I said. He frowned, confused. Then he pressed play. It was him and Elise. In a hotel room. Laughing. Kissing. Saying things I can't even repeat now without wanting to throw up. He went pale. "Where did you?" "I've had them for months," I said. He tried to speak, but I raised a hand to silence him. "You don't get to talk," I whispered. I stood, walked to the kitchen counter, and picked up the envelope I had left there. Inside was everything, the screenshots, the emails, the videos, printed out, neatly organized. "I've sent a copy of this to your boss," I said. "Another copy to your parents. And a third one to the board of your company. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know who you really are." He stared at me like I had struck him. "You wouldn't." I already did. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even look at him again as I walked upstairs, packed my suitcase, and left the house. I didn't want to see his face when the storm finally hit. I didn't look back when I left the house that night. I drove straight to the small apartment I had secretly rented weeks ago, a tiny one-bedroom across town. The place smelled of fresh paint and emptiness, but I felt lighter walking into it than I had in months. I slept that night without nightmares. The next morning, my phone exploded. First came the calls from Victor, 5, 6, 10 in a row. Then the texts. Please answer. We can fix this. Please. Don't do this. I didn't reply. By noon, I saw the news in real time. His company's internal chat leaked screenshots. The board had called an emergency meeting. Someone on social media, probably one of the assistants, had posted a vague tweet about someone's dirty laundry going public. By evening, Victor's name was trending. I watched it all from my couch, a glass of wine in my hand, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. People were ruthless. CEO caught in scandal with junior employee, married man's affair rocks company culture. Infidelity, power imbalance, leaked photos, should he resign? I refreshed the feed over and over, drinking it all in. Victor finally stopped calling by midnight. Instead, I got a single text. I lost everything. Are you happy now? I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Elise wasn't spared either. A week later, I saw that her Instagram was gone. Her LinkedIn said former marketing associate. I imagined the whispers in her office, the judgmental stares, the HR meetings. I wondered if she hated him now, or if she hated me. It didn't matter. Because for the first time, I wasn't the victim. Victor showed up at my apartment door 2 weeks later. I didn't open it at first. I just stood behind the peephole, watching him. He looked smaller, like someone had let the air out of him. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, his face hollow. When I finally cracked the door open, he didn't try to push past me. He just stood there, holding himself like a man bracing for a punch. I wanted to see you, he said. His voice was quiet. Why? Because I need you to know. He swallowed hard. I didn't love her. Not like I loved you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You destroyed our marriage for someone you didn't even love. I said, my voice sharp enough to cut. He flinched. I made a mistake, he whispered. I lost everything. Please. Please don't let me lose you too. I stared at him for a long moment. And for a second, just a second, I almost believed him. But then I remembered all those nights he lied to me. All those mornings I woke up alone, thinking I was the problem. All the messages, the hotel rooms, the betrayal. You already lost me, I said. And I closed the door. I thought I would feel triumphant after that. Victorious. But that night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time, I felt the weight of what I had done. I had burned his world down. And in the quiet darkness, a question I hadn't let myself think before crept into my mind. Had I burned mine down too? The weeks that followed were strange. People started looking at me differently, friends who had heard the story through whispers. Some admired me, called me strong. Others looked at me with pity, like I was some tragic figure. But no one knew the whole truth. No one knew how much I had enjoyed it, the planning, the sabotage, the perfect timing. No one knew how I sometimes replayed the look on Victor's face in my head, like a favorite scene from a movie. And no one knew that part of me still wasn't done. Because if revenge is a storm, mine had only just passed its eye. It was supposed to be over. I told myself that 100 times. That I had already done enough. That Victor was ruined, that Elise was gone, that the marriage was finished, and that was the justice I wanted. But the truth was, justice hadn't been what I wanted. I wanted him to suffer. And suffering takes time. 1 month after the confrontation, I saw Victor again. Not in person, but on the news. He was sitting at a table, giving a statement about his voluntary resignation from the company. His once perfect suit hung loose on him, his tie crooked. He was a man unraveling. But it wasn't enough. Because even now, he still had his house, his money, his name. I wanted more. So I called him. His voice on the phone was hesitant, like a man answering a call from a ghost. I think we should talk, I said. When he came to my apartment, he looked worse than before. Dark circles under his eyes. Beard unshaven. He smelled like whiskey. Why did you call me? He asked. Because I want you to know what you did to me, I said. He nodded, as if bracing himself. You lied to me. You humiliated me. You made me doubt myself, my worth, my sanity. And I'm not done making you feel what that's like. He exhaled, closing his eyes. What do you want, Rachel? That was the first time he had said my name in months. I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the fear flicker in his eyes. I want to take everything, I whispered that I had already spoken to a lawyer. The divorce papers were ready. But I had also prepared a financial claim so devastating it would strip him of almost everything he owned. The house, the cars, half his savings, half his future earnings. And then I went further. I sent the story, every last detail, with proof, to an investigative journalist who had been hounding his company for months about workplace misconduct. Within days, they published a feature not just about the affair. About the entire culture Victor had fostered at the company. The late-night trips, the favoritism, the blurred lines between personal and professional. Elise's name was changed in the article, but everyone knew who she was. It went viral. Victor wasn't just unemployed now. He was toxic. No company would touch him. His friends stopped answering his calls. His parents publicly expressed disappointment. His younger brother, the golden child, distanced himself completely. I watched it all, cold and calm. And then, one night, I drove past our old house. The windows were dark. The lawn was overgrown. The once pristine driveway had weeds pushing through the cracks. Victor was sitting on the porch, alone, a bottle beside him. For a moment, my chest ached. Because despite everything, this was the man I had once loved. The man who had made me laugh so hard I cried. The man who had kissed me on a beach at midnight and promised forever. But forever was gone. And what was left was this, a broken man, staring at the ruins of his life. When he saw me, he didn't get up. "Are you happy now?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I walked up the driveway, stopped a few feet away. "I don't know," I admitted. He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You've destroyed me." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it happen." He looked at me for a long time, then nodded slowly. "You got what you wanted," he said. "Congratulations." And then he went inside, closing the door. That was the last time I saw him. A week later, I heard he had sold the house. Moved out of state. Some people said he was starting over. Others whispered darker rumors, that he was drinking too much, that he wasn't okay. I never found out which was true. Because I didn't follow him this time. People think revenge feels like fire, like an explosion. But they're wrong that it feels like a storm. It builds slowly, gathering strength, darkening the sky. Then it breaks, tearing through everything, leaving destruction in its wake. And when it's over, there's only silence. I sat in my apartment one night, the city lights glowing outside my window, and I finally let myself cry. For the marriage I lost. For the woman I used to be. And maybe, just maybe, for the man I had loved, even though I was the one who destroyed him, because in the end, the storm didn't just take him. It took me, too. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in front of a mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My hair was shorter now, my face sharper. There was something in my eyes that hadn't been there before, not sadness, not anger, but something quieter. Strength. I had survived the storm. The apartment that had once felt empty now felt like home. There were plants on the windowsill, books stacked on the coffee table, a record player humming softly in the background. I had started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. It wasn't good, not yet, but it was mine. I was learning to live alone. Learning to love it. Victor never called again. Sometimes, I wondered where he was. If he found another job, another woman, another version of himself. But I didn't look him up. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did that. I cared enough about myself to stop living in the shadow of a man who broke me. One rainy evening, the kind that reminded me of the night I first discovered the truth, I lit a candle, poured a glass of wine, and sat by the window. The storm outside was wild, thrashing against the glass, but inside I felt calm. Because for the first time, the storm wasn't inside me anymore. It had passed. It had left its wreckage, yes, but it had also left a kind of clarity, the kind that comes after thunder when the world feels raw and clean. And in that quiet, I finally understood something. Revenge hadn't healed me. But it had freed me. I picked up my phone and opened a blank note. At the top, I wrote one word. Future. And then, for the first time in a very long time, I started to write, not about him, not about the past, not about what was taken from me, but about what I wanted next, not as a wife, not as a victim, but as me. Rachel. If you're listening to this, wondering if revenge is worth it, let me tell you the truth, it doesn't fix you. It doesn't make the pain disappear. It just takes that pain and gives it a target. And when the target is gone, when you've watched them fall, when the storm has passed, You're left standing in the wreckage, asking yourself if you're any different than the person who hurt you. I'm not the same woman I was before. I'm harder now. Sharper. But I am free. And sometimes, freedom is worth every shattered piece it leaves behind.